I started this film after being kicked out of film school for an art piece that I did, criticizing the dean of students, funnily enough. But I kind of was like trying to reach out to someone, you know, at 19, someone that I could relate to, and it was Burroughs, because he had this kind of needle-sharp accuracy of how to critique all these darkness and darkness. All right. Well,
can we get the house lights up at least?
Yeah. We were all in the dark until we discovered Burroughs.
So poetic.
Yeah. Well, we can have a slumber party after the Q&A. All right. Well, should I just keep talking in the dark?
Yeah.
All right.
So you were kicked out, and
yeah. So then Burroughs kind of had this really amazing needle-sharp accuracy of how to critique control systems that maybe I didn't have when I was 19 and trying to rebel, and I didn't do it in the right way. So I moved to Lawrence, Kansas, and this project kind of, I wanted to do a small film just for me. I had no idea I was making the Burroughs documentary. So I just started interviewing professors and people that knew him in town. And I ended up getting a ride from this. I interviewed this garbage collector. She owned a dump, but she was friends with him. She said, you know, I'm driving up to upstate New York to Charlie Plymel's house, who's a beat poet. Why don't you come with me? And I came up, and I interviewed him, and he introduced me to Sonic Youth, who introduced me to Laura Anstey, and all of them kind of pushed this film forward. And I think that's because all these people have such a strong will to, for William Burroughs, you know, it's not like interviewing rock stars about music, which is really difficult. These people kind of all were unbelievably supportive. But I think, yeah, that doesn't really quite answer your question, but.
So there is that thing about like sort of rock stars and having, you know, their feeling for him versus like if you were trying to get them to talk about music. Because for a film that's chock full of famous people, of really important people, you know, whatever, it feels really organic in a way. I mean, everyone feels really natural talking about something and that they clearly really care about him. Was that your feeling? Was there anyone who you interviewed and you were like, oh, this one's not going right?
Well, I think I think one of the most important things, and I know a lot of my peers are in the audience here, but a lot of one of the most important things for a documentary filmmaker is to learn the technique of how to interview someone. So I practiced a lot. I interviewed about 30 to 50 people before I started, you know, with any people like this. But I learned kind of not only how to listen to them and listen to what they were saying, but listen to what they weren't saying. And I think that was something, and once I got that, I found it like a lot easier as those skills. But I mean, I didn't include, like, I'm not, here are famous people, let me include them in my film.
Right.
I mean, these are influencers who influenced a whole nother generation, and it was Burroughs who influenced these influencers. So I think I tried to, you know, bring in everyone that was, you know, culturally relevant and not so, but I don't think there was anyone that was that difficult, maybe, and if there was, I shouldn't talk about it.
No, this is the perfect place to talk about it. Was there anyone who made you really nervous? Were you like super, like you're like, oh my gosh, it's Gus Van Sant, or like?
Let's see. Oh, there was this molester that I was interviewing. He like was friends with him in Lawrence, Kansas, and I was like, he's a really shady character. He spent most of the time in jail, but they knew each other, and yeah, he was in jail for molesting this little deaf boy in Mexico. And I was interviewing him, and I like didn't think about it, and I just like, that was a little bit of an unsavory situation. But everyone else was, no, I wasn't nervous. They were nice.
Cool.
Yeah. You have to kind of meditate when you interview someone, you know? You kind of forget where you are, and well, at least I do. And I just listen.
I'm just thinking about roller skating for some reason.
Yeah, we're going to go after this. You guys should probably
questions from the audience?
How come the 30 other interviews that you did didn't make it into Final Cut, or the early interviews with the...
Yeah, I mean, some of, like one of them does, or two of them does, but I think like some of it I didn't do with Cameron. I was 19, this project took me like 5 years to make, but I think like I wasn't at the point, and a lot of them weren't good interviews because they're not used to being on camera. These were just people in Lawrence, his neighbors, you know, like professors at the school. One, they're not used to being interviewed, and I wasn't used to interviewing people, but I guess that's how. Yeah, it's fine. But I actually sent the tapes to the school owns it now, so it's part of their archives, donated to the school. So.
There's loads of archive.
Yeah.
So how was it dealing with that amount of footage, and how did you organise them for the structure of the film and
Yeah.
why did you place certain things in certain
Yeah,
places?
it was awesome. I found a lot of it in like people's basements. It was like, you know, tape sitting soggy in moldy boxes in people's basements and things like that. So being able to archive that was really rewarding. And actually I feel really good that I was able to do that. But I mean, even some of even Thurston Moore had that Sonic Youth Super 8 tape in his like bottom of his junk drawer. And he was like, "Rrr," you know, and like I got to archive it, telescene it. And it was great. There's still tons and tons and tons of Burroughs stuff on that still needs to be teleseen. But I guess putting it together, our editor, Ilko Davidov, is a really interesting guy who runs the SimFest in Chicago, helped with that a lot. Yeah.
So, question back there?
Yeah, mine's a bit of a generic question, but what were you trying to bring across about William Burroughs into the documentary? Like, just re-celebrate him, or sure, like, can you ask him to him? What was your idea?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things. I was trying to kind of deconstruct, go past the persona. So I think this movie kind of serves as an introduction to Burroughs, and people can pick up his work. You know, some people ask me, you know, how come you didn't go more into his work? I mean, it's impossible to delve into so many different books, and I think they're so strong. You can go and pick up these books after watching this film, and they stay really potent. But I think I wanted to show things like people read Naked Lunch and Queer, and he's this guy that opened the doors for all this, you know, new types of thinking. And then, you know, you see him in the film with Allen Ginsberg and, you know, Andy Warhol, he's just like squirming. He's like, don't talk about sex, you know? So I kind of was trying to expose that side of him, I guess. And I let the people tell the story too. It wasn't my original. I had a treatment and I kind of wanted to structure it a certain way, but I just, and in the end, just let them tell the story. Yeah. There was someone else somewhere. I don't know. Did you guys like the wire animations? That was cool, right? That was the first time that's been used. The stop motion wire animations.
Oh. What about the other section of animation?
The hand drawn?
Yeah, the hand drawn.
Yeah. I studied animation and I did animation and video art before I did documentaries. And that was made by the hand drawn was made by Amy Gogan, who went to Cal Arts and was one of my peers, and the wire was made by me and Dylan Markey directed, and he makes these wire sculptures. He's the only one that does them, but they're really amazing.
Yeah, really beautiful.
Yeah.
Other questions? Yony?
Thanks for
very
coming.
much.
Maybe I'll see you guys.